Hey, what's going on, friends? Welcome to another episode of Chasing Elephants. And as always, I am your host, Jeff Wallace. And even though he's not here, we also have my brother, my friend, Brent Crow. We love this podcast. And as you guys know, we have been taking this journey and having conversations with friends of ours that have not just blessed us, but have blessed you as our audience. You've kind of had an opportunity to connect with them in one way, shape, form, or fashion. And so, we thought it'd be cool that we take a couple of episodes and let you kind of peek behind the curtains of some of the conversations that we have with some of our dear and close friends. And guys, I got to tell you, I'm excited about this week episode and this week conversation because I'm pretty sure that the majority of our audience and those of you who subscribe to this podcast, you have witnessed the ministry, the fun, hilarious ministry of this week's guest here on our podcast. He, in my opinion, is one of the most creative and innovative illusionists. And I'll let him kind of break down what does that really mean that we have had. You've seen him with us on Youth Pastor Summit, the Lift Tour. You've probably had a D Now somewhere or a camp with many of our partners that we have that you've seen him. He has filled arenas and churches and stadiums, and he's traveled all around the world. And again, I think he's just a gift to the body of Christ. And so, friends, if you don't mind, if you would just do me a favor, if you are driving, you can clap while you're driving. If you're watching, you can be like, woo woo. But welcome to Chasing Elephants, our friend, the JaredHall.com. Jared, what's up, brother? What's going on?
Hey, it's so good to be with you guys today. This is awesome.
Thank you, Jared. So listen, just so you know, when we have our conversation, we have both students and students and leaders that listen to our podcast. So students who've probably seen you at a Lift Tour or something, and leaders who've seen you at YPS. So as you're talking, you'll know who you're talking to. And so, but bro, thank you, man. How's it been? I know you've had a busy summer, man. How are you doing?
Yeah, doing well. Summer is off to a start. I mean, I can't believe June is coming to an end pretty quick.
Yeah.
I just got home a couple days ago from being out for the first couple weeks of June solid. So always grateful to get to partner with churches, organizations, to be at their camps, their conferences, their summer events, as well as, of course, Lift Tours and YPS events. I mean, that's what we've been doing for 20 years. And I say we, my wife and I, this is what we do full time. And we live here in Nashville, Tennessee. So that's where I'm sitting right here in my little alcove. Looking out the window. And so, yeah, it's good to be home for a few days. I leave again on I don't even know what today is. I leave on Tuesday. I know that. What is today? Thursday. I had a show here last night in town, actually at our home church.
Oh, that's cool.
It was awesome, but it's good to be home. And, when you get home, you got to tackle the projects that are at home. So I put up a closet organizer, I got this, the best dad in the world.
Yeah. Because you are the father of a beautiful little girl, man. And so I know she's happy to see daddy when he gets home.
Yeah, that's the hardest part of this whole thing. I never anticipated, how hard it would be to leave the house to do ministry and get to do, what I feel called to do. And so that's kind of one of those things like home front's kind of like the first priority, but leaving is never easy these days, especially when she can look at you and say, don't go.
That's the word. I know that's the struggle. Okay, so before I jump in, this is super random. All right, so are you guys, you and your wife, because y'all do ministry together, and let me tell you, friends, if you've not booked both Jared and his wife together, that's something you want to consider because it is phenomenal. But here's the $1 million question, Jared. Are you guys going to have a family act? Do you see in the horizon, man, having a family act, bringing your daughter into the fold?
Yeah, she's already showing signs of showbiz. She's a bigger star than Megan and I as a kid. But my wife, for those of you guys that don't know, is a ventriloquist. We got married almost 8 years ago, and we have a 3.5-year-old daughter. And so magic and ventriloquism, those worlds kind of came together.
Yeah.
And I've been traveling since 2003, doing youth, family, college, youth pastor training. I got hooked up with SLU many years ago, and been partnering with them in a lot of their events. But I mean, we do a lot of different kind of things.
Yeah.
A lot of people use us in different ways. And my wife doing a lot of kids and family events, camps and VBSs. So we're kind of meshing those two worlds. She still travels. She does a lot of curriculum writing. I still travel and do a lot of solo events. And then we get to do quite a bit of stuff together. So some of you guys have seen her on stage at YPS or even lift tours. And so it's always fun when we can take the whole family, but it just depends on kind of where we're going and what that looks like. So.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's go ahead. Cause we have, and I love how you do this when you introduce yourself. So, we have some people who be like, oh my gosh, they hear the M word, magic, and they think witchcraft and all that stuff, or, illusionist. And, I love how you tell everybody, I'm going to illuge you, but, so can you kind of dispel some myths when it's for the record, guys, it is totally not witchcraft. It's really, it's entertainment. It's Christian entertainment and stuff. But, I know that you've had to say that because unfortunately, there are some people who they're not very fond of the magic. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. I grew up, I'll just say it. I grew up, in a Southern Baptist church. My dad was a music pastor on staff for 37 years at Second Baptist Church in Baytown. That's where I grew up. And so I grew up in that world. And, we didn't dance. We didn't, there was just a lot of things we didn't do.
Right.
Over the years, a lot of things have changed over the years. But I learned early on that the word magic or magician to some people is not a good thing, especially in the church world. And I always also heard the myth, if you're an illusionist, you can do bigger things. You come across as a bigger deal. And I don't know if that's necessarily true, but the word illusionist, I just adopted that early on because people would think a lot of different things about magician or magic. An illusionist was a little more, okay, he does illusions, and maybe they don't know exactly what that means or how to do that, but kind of narrowed down that definition for some people. And if you've seen me live, yes, I do illusions. I love magic or illusions. I love doing, tricks, if you will.
Yeah.
And all these things are just things with methods, with techniques, or with a skill, or But I also love comedy. I've been a fan of comedy pretty much my whole life. I love to laugh. Yeah. My wife and I, we try to fill our home with as much laughter and joy as we can. And when I say that, I try to just be myself on stage, and I can never just be this serious guy. I don't know why, but I don't think, people can handle too much of that. I know for me, I can't watch very a lengthy, serious mentalism or it's just like, okay, give me a break, and I think people can see through that. For example, like, when somebody takes and levitates a ball like this, right? We know it's not real, right? We know it's just a soup ladle under the arm. That's all it is. It's just a soup ladle.
That is so, bro. Okay, guys, listen. That is crazy because I didn't even know that.
But people enjoy knowing the secrets sometimes, and I don't tell all my secrets. But when somebody kind of can see, oh, okay, this is just for entertainment. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves in this thing, but for me, I realized very early on, if I can get people laughing, I can engage them. And the best communicators, some of the best, my favorite communicators, they use humor, they use storytelling. Yeah. And you got to hook your audience. You got to get them interested. And so that's the number one goal, is to engage. And that way we can be an effective communicator.
And I gotta say, man, what I've appreciated, especially with us being on the road together with Lift Tour and with YPS, I appreciate a multitude of things about you, but I love that approach. And I think that's one of the things that really benefits our event when we partner with you is your balance of humor and entertainment. And I just gotta say, bro, it is phenomenal. It's like a great marriage for us because, we always have you in particular, what we call the pre-show set. And that's when people are coming in for Lift Tour, Youth Pastor Summit, and they don't know what to expect, or, they got to kind of loosen up because we're going to get serious. And we take, in the Lift Tour in particular, we try to be intentional, Jared, with taking people on a journey. So where we're engaging all the senses, and then we're also speaking to every aspect of that student. So we want to get them laughing. We want to, we want to speak to their hearts and their soul. We want to help them worship God, and teach them how to, not teach them how to worship God, but facilitate moments of worship. We want to unapologetically deep dive and be serious and engage scripture. But even when we're engaged in scripture as a communicator, we got to use stories and humor and all of that. And so taking students on a journey, what you bring to our Lift Tours, I mean, it really, really helps that aspect. And so you've done a great job of, I love that you just mentioned how you do humor and the serious of the tricks, or not tricks, but just the methods. We'll call them methods. But let's start at the beginning. Like, how did you, because it's cool. People, I'm glad that you shared about your dad and how you grew up in ministry, and so people might think, oh man, he was some guy who just went to a magic school or whatever. But like, how did you go from a PK, preacher's kid, into becoming this nationwide illusionist that everybody knows and loves?
I mean, dude, I just to make a point before we jump into that. One thing I will say, get to be a part of the YPS events. Levi Lusko was there at a couple of them with us, and it was in Orlando that he said something. I can't remember who he quoted, but I mean, he's a great storyteller, and he's a humorous guy, very funny, and just love everything I've seen him do from the platform. But he said something in his talk that, man, I wrote it down in my notes, and I need to look up who actually said this to give him proper, give a proper quote. But he said, laughter is the anesthetic, or the anesthesia before the word comes in to cut. And at these events that we put on, we want to get vulnerable. We want to be real with people. We want to challenge people. And that's just the authentic side of what we do and what you guys do. And I thought it was so encouraging to me as a guy that sometimes just fills that slot of getting the crowd engaged. Hey, they're getting in their seats, go out and do 15 minutes and get them ready. Yeah. Sometimes I can walk off stage and go, okay, why am I here? Is this even necessary? And sometimes I don't think it is necessary, and sometimes it's not necessary. But one thing I've always been encouraged by you guys and from the people that you guys put on your platforms, that what I bring to the table matters, sometimes more than I even know myself. And I don't want to toot my horn or anything like that, but my number one goal is just to be me, be authentic, be who God has created me to be. Yeah. And in saying that, as a kid growing up in the church, my dad was a music pastor. I was in church every time the doors were open, as most days are. I mean, Sunday mornings, Sunday nights, Tuesday night prayer meeting, Wednesday youth group, Thursday I even went to visitation sometimes with my dad. I was there all the time. I knew that church. I knew every square inch of that church.
Buddy.
And, I knew every person in there, and they knew me because I grew up there my whole life. And my dad actually grew up in that church. So we were like, we had been there for a long time. Yeah. And, my grandparents grew up in Baytown, just outside of Houston. I mean, that's where we were. And so I guess to answer that question in short form, my dad was a music pastor. He was into music. I got into drumming in middle school. I was a drummer. And I thought, okay, I'm going to drum. I started playing drums at church. It was one of the first like transitional pieces to worship. We were a strict like choir robe wearing
Yeah, yeah.
piano Baptist church. I mean, my dad sang hymns, not the third verse of any of them, but just like that's how it was, like that's
The third verse. I
yeah,
love it.
I don't
Yeah.
know why, but anyway, that just kind of, I started playing drums on the platform every once in a while, and that started to transition
Yeah.
the way that they did worship, and into a praise team kind of a setting. So that was my world. I thought, okay, I'm going to be a musician. I'm going to be in a Christian band, or
Yeah.
and God had a different avenue for me. I was always a fan of magic. I saw a magician at an early age, and we had another Christian magician come to our church when I was a kid for a family night kind of event. And
Yeah.
I've always loved magic. I've always been fascinated by the methods behind how these work. And I've also always I've always loved being fooled. I love to be tricked. Even today, if I go to a magic show, I'm not sitting there trying to figure out everything, although naturally I
Right.
myself. But I love when I'm fooled. That's the best. So I try to go and watch as much as I can so that I can still experience that moment. And so I started learning card tricks. I got a magic set when I was a kid for Christmas, and that just kind of started the avalanche of the addiction of like, okay, I got to learn every card trick I know how to. I can get my hands on. And I was known around my high school as the magic guy. Even people that didn't know my name, they knew that I would do these tricks. And it's weird. Magic, especially back in the late 90s, early 2000s, nobody had cell phones. We didn't have iPhones around. Right. So it was word of mouth. And I would walk into the lunchroom and
use your beeper. You have to use your beeper.
Yeah. Page me, send me a note tied to a pigeon, however we used to communicate,
Yeah.
But I would walk into these lunchrooms and people would just be talking about something that I did. And the thing about magic is it's not about necessarily what happens. And this is real dorky magic talk, but it's not necessarily what really happens. It's what the audience remembers of happening. And so sometimes in a trick, we'll say things that aren't even really happening, and the crowd will remember something totally different. And their recall of what I did or what I supposedly happened would be completely different than what actually took place.
Interesting.
And so that happened to me as a young kid. I walked into a cafeteria, first day of school. I had gone from 8th grade to 9th grade. I didn't know half these kids, a bunch of middle schools combined for a big high school. I walk in, and there's 3 guys that I went to middle school with that saw me. They're like, dude, come over, sit with us. And there's a whole table of people I didn't know. And one of these guys, his name was Jason. I'll never forget it. He turns to the table and he starts telling these other kids all this stuff that I never did that was so great. I mean, I don't know what he saw or what show he thought but he's going off on how I do all this stuff. And all that to say, I sat down and I was like, okay. And they just had this idea in their mind of me. And so then I started doing tricks. And obviously, there's a line between being a magician or being a liar. And obviously, for me, I get to lie for a living, and I'm not condoning that. I'm not here to deceive anybody, but sometimes what I say is not always what I do. I'll just put it that way. But it's for the glory of God. Gotta get a name.
Lord knows your heart, Jerry.
I mean, that's the constant battle is keeping the motive right. But for me, that was the transition. In high school, it was my moment. I realized, I could gather a crowd. I could talk to people
that's cool.
Maybe wouldn't talk to me, but they would watch me do something. I would go to Friday night football games, and I would have half the student section looking over me. I mean, honestly, one time I got taken out of the student section by some police officers, taken down under the bleachers. They made me empty out my pockets because I had so many people around me. And they were like, what is all this? I'm pulling out like Rubik's cubes and stuff. They're like, what is all this stuff? I'm like, I'm a magician. I was doing magic. And they're like, oh, we thought you were dealing drugs. And that was me getting frisked in 10th grade for doing card
Doing magic.
and those cops instantly, they're like, oh, show us some magic. And I'm like, it's just this universal, it's weird. It's a universal attraction to this art form. So, just being relatable. Yeah. Once again, trying to be engaging. I was able to be friends with a lot of people that necessarily wouldn't be my friend if it was just me, or if I was maybe in the band or an athlete or whatever. It was kind of this weird anomaly, this universal thing that I was that, in high school, middle school and high school, you kind of segregate in your groups. You got athletes, you got musicians, you got the drama club, you got whatever. And for me, I just kind of fell in the middle of that. And God began to open up doors for me, even in high school, to share my faith. I gave my life to Jesus in middle school. I got saved as a young kid, but man, I had this moment at camp as a middle schooler that I really just put the stake in the ground, and I was like, this is it for me. And so I was able to share my story and my faith.
Yeah.
Even in times where it was kind of awkward, man, because people trusted me, because they were having a good time or laughing. And so my youth pastor in high school, man, he really encouraged me. He was like, Jared, I think this is something unique for you. And, I'm doing this 20 years later because of my youth pastor. So all youth pastors that are listening to this, and I know I've said this on stage at YPS, but I really do mean this. What you do matters, and what you say and what you pray and speak into your students. Don't ever walk off those platforms like I do sometimes and go, is what I'm doing really even relevant, or does it matter? Or is it, because you never know. We were at one of the Lyft tour stops this year, and I had a couple middle schoolers, and this happens from time to time. I think it was in Arkansas at Clay's church, First Baptist, and they came up to the table afterwards, and they were just so engaged with what I do, and they stood in front of my table the whole time. They wouldn't move out of the way. They just wanted to hang out and talk.
Yeah.
And I just remember them leaving the table and just going, okay, if that was the only engagement that they had all weekend, that's why I was here. That was worth it for me, to encourage those kids and hang out and get to just kind of breathe life into them and speak into them, encourage them. And so that's been my mission for 20 years. I haven't ever done anything else. I've never had a real job. Even this is it. God just thrust me out on the platform. And sometimes it's to 15 people a night. And sometimes, like you said, I've been very fortunate to get to be on stages that were absolutely intimidating. And just grateful to do it.
That's so good, man. And so bro, that's beautiful. I love that. And thank you for encouraging these youth pastors and youth leaders to even embrace that awkward kid, right? Or the different kid. I think that's so important to know, because I think, Jared, sometimes we like to embrace the kid or the student that we like, oh, they got it, right? Or you can see the glimmer of hope, or something. But there are some students the Lord's going to use in their awkwardness or their uniqueness to do something great for the kingdom that they can't even think or imagine. I love to, okay, so without you giving away all of your secrets, I would love to know, a couple things. Number one, I'll kind of put it together. Like, where do you draw your inspiration for a trick or something? And then what's your process of kind of like putting it together, if that makes sense? Like, so how do you, as you're putting the show together, I won't give some of the ones that are, just are amazing, and I always love the one that you do, like the finale, that 100% of the time the students and adults, because I've seen that at YPS, they're like, no way, it's stuff. So how do you draw inspiration, and then what's your process of putting it together?
Yeah. I mean, it comes from a lot of different areas. I know for me, magic is a lot like songwriting. There's a lot of similarities, where there's writers, there's, in magic, there's creators, and or illusion, there's creators that create ideas, they create methods, they create gimmicks, they create these things. And so some of it comes from that. Sometimes I'll extract stuff from books or lectures. There's magic conferences that we go to, where, man, talk about a dork fest. It's quite the treat to go. That and a ventriloquism conference, even better. I mean, just gold mines over there. But anyway,
Crazy.
it's quite the treat. But for me personally, I tend to. There's two ways I usually go. Either I get something that I really want to communicate. Okay, here's a message that I want to say, or here's a verse, or here's a point I want to make.
Okay.
So what could I do visually that could make that point versus me just saying it? So how can I build that visually with a storyline or with an illustration? And we do that all the time. Painters do it with a piece. What imagery are they painting? So for me, I go, what imagery would be cool? And I pull my inspiration from everywhere. I mean, every day, all day, anywhere I go, I'm looking for things to do. And especially with magic, people expect you to be able to do magic with anything. So, hey, here, take my dollar bill and change it into 100. They expect you to be able to do that. And the answer to that is yes, I can do that. I don't do it because I'm humble. But what I'm saying. I don't use my powers for evil is what I'm saying. But for me, I pull inspiration. My daughter has this little Rubik's Cube. It's a tiny, it's like a little party favor cube. And I love the Rubik's Cube because you can, there's a lot of kids that are into Rubik's Cubes. The speed cube is a big thing. So for me, I know that that's a relatable thing for them. I know that they've seen a Rubik's Cube. They know what it is, even though it's from the 80s. And so anytime I ask a crowd, hey, who can solve Rubik's Cube? There's always 5 or 15 hands go up. Hey, yeah, pick me. I'm like, no, I'm not going to get you up here to speed cube. Okay, we've all seen you do that. That's respectable. But I'll take that idea and I'll go, okay, that's something they're used to. How can it be done in a different way? Maybe to talk about restoration or completion. Sometimes life is like a Rubik's Cube. It seems from the outside it's all mixed up or messed up. But what if God has a plan that maybe looks a little bit chaotic for your life? For me, I know that was true. I didn't know what I was going to do, especially when I got into college. I was like, what am I getting a degree in that's going to help me with magic? And so I just remember struggling in that, going, God, how can you use this? This doesn't seem like a possibility for me. And I love that idea of what's possible. And as Christians, we say nothing's impossible with God, and we say it over and over again. And it's like, well, do you mean it? Or is that just something you're saying? And so for me, I'm like, okay, what's possible with a Rubik's Cube? And we all know how to. We all know how to solve one of these things, or at least the method. You got to turn the sides, and you got to get them all just right, and that's just how it goes, right? You have to try to figure out how to do it right. Yeah.
What? You are not, brother. Heck no. No way. Okay.
What if, Jeff? What if?
That is crazy.
You could solve it in your mouth, right? I mean, that's crazy, right? So anyway, that's from those angles. Nobody's clapping. Or maybe you guys are clapping.
You've never done that one before. I've not seen that before. That's good.
I feel like what angles can you do something that maybe they're not expecting? And my wife and I, we love watching AGT, America's Got Talent, all those kind of shows. And there's a lot of our friends that are on those shows. And the one thing they always say is, We want to see something we weren't expecting.
Yeah.
And man, I tell you what, we're living in a world that is getting harder and harder to do daily
Amen.
with social media, with the way you guys, we live with our phone in our hand and
Hmm.
we don't know something. All we do is go, Siri, what's a whatever? And
Right.
Siri tells us what it is. And I mean, honestly, Siri and Google, it is just my worst enemy, especially trying to engage these
Yeah.
students.
That's
Go,
true.
because TikTok and it just is a brainwash out there. Just blah, they're inundated. So to
Yeah.
get them in a chair for an hour and try to challenge them, I mean, I'm noticing rapidly it is becoming more and more difficult to even get them to put their phone in their pocket for an hour.
So on that, Jared, that's interesting you say that. And so because one of the things that I've also witnessed that you are good at is reading a room. And so I imagine, so you correct me if I'm wrong, but I imagine many illusionists or entertainers or magicians, they have an act, right? And I'm going from this act to that act to this trick, or whatnot. But, what happens if it fails, people aren't responding, or timing is off or whatnot, and I know there's been times where even in real time, we talked about this afterwards, real time, there was something had happened that you didn't even expect as you were setting up the trick to
Yeah.
happen. So how do you read a room? Like, how do you adjust, when you read a room and something is off the schedule? Or what do you do in that moment, I should say?
I mean, as humble as I can say this, it's just about putting in the work. And that's such a,
That's a great leadership point, though.
well, but comedians say that a lot too. Like, man, you just got to put in your hours for, any skill. It's like you're going to put in 10,000 hours or whatever it is. And that's the weird thing about magic is as a magician, I practice and practice and practice on my own so that when I perform something, you don't know that I've practiced. I mean, that is such a weird concept. If you see a pianist or a guy juggling or a ventriloquist or any other art form of somebody who has spent hundreds of thousands of hours doing something, um, you know it. You go, oh, they've practiced. But sometimes with magic, it's like we practice so that you won't know we're doing what we've been practicing, which is just a weird thing. In that same boat, I think is just that idea of getting out there and doing it. And I'm in front of a lot of different people every night. There's different crowds. Every group is different. You never know if there's somebody in the room that's deals with maybe a special need, or there's people over here that have had too much Red Bull, or there's people over here who, you know what I'm saying? I mean, especially at lift tours with middle school kids, you never know what's going to happen, and
Or what they're going to say.
or what they're going to say, or who they're going to say it to. And for me, my style, I love the kind of feeling like we're in the moment and kind of feeling like everything's just flowing from one thing to the next. So for me, a lot of times, if I'm going on stage to do 15 minutes, I mean, I know what I'm going out there to do, or I have a plan at least of what I'm going to do. But I've also got backup plans. I'm a planner. If you talk to my wife, I have plan A, plan B, plan C, and plan D if that doesn't happen. And I think that's part of why I love the illusion so much, is because I love the method and I love to make it better and I love to, but for me, I always have a way out a lot of times with what I do. I've got a plan B if something happens. And I'll be honest with you. Sometimes I've performed stuff for years. Okay. I've done a trick in my show 1,000 times. And I say that, and that's honest. I have done this thing 1,000 times. I did it in every show for 12, 13 years.
Yeah.
And one night, probably 5 years ago, I was doing the same routine that is just verbatim to me now. And a kid said something to me that was, just his natural response back. And it was hilarious. The crowd the crowd was done. They could not recover. And I had never had it happen before. And in that moment, it became a completely new thing for me. It became something that I'm like, okay, from now on, I want him to respond like that every time now. So what did I do? What did I say? How did I do this that got him to respond? And part of it was the kid, but also it was just in the moment kind of a thing. And so for me, stuff like that happens all the time. I'll see an item, or I'll see a trick, or I'll see a method, or I'll read something in an old magic book. I've got hundreds of books with methods and things from magicians of the past and the greats. But I'll see something, I'll go, okay, well, they did this, but what if we use this method for this purpose or this point? And, I get an idea I get ideas at the grocery store. I got an idea at, I was flossing my teeth the other day, and I'll show you this. Check this out. I got these we've all seen these. Yeah. If you haven't seen these, you should get some. Yeah.
Yeah, you should floss. You should always floss. Yeah, floss is good.
I mean, for me as a magician, especially with middle school and high school students, if I pull out a bird or something, a dove, they're going to be like, okay, cheesy. Right. So I'm always thinking magic. The classic, one of the oldest tricks in the books is the linking rings, where you take two metal rings and you link them together. I don't even know if you've ever seen that, but the magicians do that all the time. I'm like, that's a cool trick, but what if you could take little flossers and make them look like they were linked, right? Does that look like it's linked? It's not linked. But what you can do is you can just rub them together like this, and then you can link them together. See how they're linked? They're linked.
Dude, wait a minute. Okay, I'm getting close, guys. I'm getting close. Trust me. That is crazy. Look at those links. In the world. I got some floss sticks like that. I'm going to go and try that.
Try that one. Yeah, try that one. But I mean, those are the things, man. You do that for that's the kind of stuff that I used to do in high school. I would just mess around with people's minds like that, going, I think the best part of my job, and I say job loosely, is that I have such a blast doing what I do, creating what I create. And I think, I heard as a kid, if you do something you love, you never work a day in your life. And that's not true, everybody. It is work. All this is work. Everybody's working.
That's true. You're right. Yeah.
And you got to put in the work sometimes. But if you love it, I love seeing people's faces. Like I just went into a gas station. I got this idea at a gas station. Jeff, I don't know if you like peanut M&Ms, right? But watch this. I don't really care for them. I like the chocolate ones better. You might not even be an M&M guy. Maybe Jeff, are you more of like a Skittles guy? Are you a Skittles guy? I'm not even a Skittles guy. I like the sour Skittles. You like the sour Skittles? Or what's better, those sour gummy bears. You guys like those sour gummy bears? That's the ones I like better. Yeah. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm just like, okay, how can I take something that everybody loves and do it in a way that's just what happened, visual. So you go into a gas station and you change M&Ms to Skittles, and then you pay for the Skittles. That dude is freaking out. That dude is going, what happened? Yeah. That just opens up a door. That opens up an opportunity I sit next to people on planes as you do, Jeff, heading to events, going to flying around the country. And the number one question people ask when they sit down next to you is, what do you do? And I say, I'm a magician. And they go,
show me a trick.
Show me a trick. And next thing I know, dude, and this is crazy to me, but I've had on multiple occasions, I've had businessmen flying to the same city I'm flying to have a meeting. We strike up a conversation and they end up coming to my show after their meeting.
That's crazy.
And they'll come into a church that maybe they never stepped foot into without the idea of an entertaining show. And hear the message. I know of at least one occasion where that has happened, where the guy came to my show. He came up to me afterwards. We met that morning on the plane. He came to my show that afternoon or evening. and he was able to hear the gospel. And that's a that's just crazy to me that God would put something inside of me that would just naturally come out in conversation every day, that could lead people to Jesus. And as I get older and really examine what I get to do, that's true for all of us. That's true for every one of us, whether it's on a stage or not. You guys, we all have things that God has given us that we need to use to reflect Him, whether it seems stupid, whether it seems corny, whether it seems impossible, whether you're a dentist or a construction worker or a preacher or a magician, whatever it is. Even if it's not on a podcast or on an interview or with a microphone on your face, and I say that all the time because I mean it, and I have more conversations off stage in real life than I do on stage about God and why I do what I do and how I got started doing this. And that's a whole nother show. But
Yeah, man.
yeah.
Jared, I'm so grateful for you. And I'm so glad that we actually had a chance to connect and do this particular podcast conversation because it's good for people to get the other side of you, right? And they've seen you on stage and enjoyed the entertainment, the ministry. I don't call it entertainment. I say the ministry that you well do, and you do it with such excellence. But it's great to hear the story. There's so many nuggets. And I hope, guys, you've heard in this conversation that Jared and I've had, which we can have this forever. There is so much that I think you bring as far as innovation, creativity, flexibility. You just talked about that as a leader. Great leaders have the ability. Don't miss what Jared was sharing when he's talking about the moment with the young man laughing. Great leaders have the ability and the comfort to pivot in the middle of a moment. And I think that really speaks to, just one, trusting God and the gift that's inside you. But then two, what you also mentioned, put in the work. Great leaders that if you want to be good, don't put in the work. If you want to be great, put in the work, and I think being great gives you that sense of longevity in ministry. The reason why you've been able to do it and do it at such a high level for so long is because of the work that you put in. And so, but brother, listen, man, I gotta put a plug there. Sadly, which I hate, I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh my gosh, we could talk forever. But here's what I want to do, Jared. If someone wants to find you, connect with you, book you, what are some ways that our audience, and just I want to look in the camera and I want to say this. We want Jared on the Lift Tour and Youth Pastor Summit and all other SLU events because he's a part of the SLU family. And we don't want to hijack moments where Jared can come to other places. But I just want you to know, if we find out that you have booked Jared over one of our events and he can't do one of our events because he's with you, it's going to be a problem. And I'm just kidding, kind of, And but we love having Jared. We're going to definitely have him. But Jared, how can people follow you and book you and all of that good stuff, man?
JaredHall.com is my website. Currently, I'm doing all my booking and everything. We do it all in-house. Right now, it's working really great for us. So JaredHall.com is the one-stop shop for any of the links to the social media. We're on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, of course. I am Jared Hall is my handle on Instagram if you want to reach out on there. I would say if you want to do an event, want to partner up, you want to dream, shoot me an email on the website. It's the best way. Don't send me a DM on social media. Sometimes those get lost. But I would love to connect with you guys. For those of you guys that have never seen my show, we got promo info on the website. You can go hear a little bit more of my heart and my story on that. And would love to partner with you in any way we can get the gospel out there and have some fun.
Yeah, and let me say this, and I'm serious when I say this. I mean, obviously, we will have Jared. It's a guarantee that you'll see Jared with us for Lift Tour Youth Pastor Summit. So that's a guarantee. But I want to say to those of you thinking, well, what type of event do I do it at? Just a D-Now weekend, just a camp, or can I do it for a church staff retreat, something that's fun for a staff retreat? The answer I would say is yes. I mean, I will put them on the spot, but yes, I think think in any of your events, it's really cool if you want to just break up the monotony or do something that's creative, that's innovative, that's team building, that's fun. You want your staff or your team just to have a moment where they can just laugh and enjoy one another, build team chemistry and camaraderie. I definitely would encourage you to reach out to Jared and bring him in for all types of events because he is just that good. And so, man, hey, brother, I'm grateful for you. My brother Brent, told me to tell you what's up. He's in actually Orlando right now. We're doing SLU 101 in Orlando and San Antonio. I'm here in San Antonio. He's in Orlando. And so when I told him that, I get jaredhall.com by myself, he's a little salty, a little jealous. But I was like, man, you guys have known each other way longer than even I've known Jared. So whatever. And then, go ahead. What did you say?
I think I'm gonna sign up for SLU 101 just because I haven't been to SeaWorld in so long. All those photos you guys been posting, I'm like, man, I wish I could do it 101. I was like, I'm just gonna sign up for it.
We need to make that happen. You know what? I'm with you. I got you there and stuff. And well, brother, listen, man, I'm so grateful for you. Thank you so much, Jared, for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you're running. Please tell your beautiful bride, man. We said we love her. She's our sister and our family, and our little niece, who's always welcome at any of our events. And so I'm grateful for you. And friends, as always, listen, we would love for you to share this podcast, like it, subscribe to it, send it out, rate us 5 stars only. Anything less than that, it doesn't seem necessary. But you can, as always, follow me at I am Jeff Wallace. It's at I am Jeff Wallace. Follow my brother Brent at Brent A. Crow, and you can follow our organization, Student Leadership University, at SLU Lead, Until next time, hey, do everything possible, everything in your ability to live every day as your best day. Be intentional about being great, and until next week, we can't wait to see you. Peace out.